Hello friends, you've just unlocked another chapter of the past, hidden, untold, and waiting to be discovered. This is Buried Truths. Let's view the video. In the shadowy mists of medieval Europe, one name echoed with reverence and fear, the Black Prince. Son of England's powerful King Edward III, he was destined to become the most feared knight of the 100 Years' War. His legacy would outlive the empires he helped build. Born on June 15, 1330, in Woodstock Palace, Edward of Woodstock was the first son of Edward III and Queen Philippa. From birth, he was heir to the throne, carrying the weight of England's royal expectations. His destiny was etched in blood, steel, and glory. As a child, Edward received a military and classical education, blending chivalric ideals with tactical warfare. His tutors shaped him into a strategist and courtly knight. Even in his early teens, the court recognized his intelligence, discipline, and an uncanny talent for leadership. The English court groomed Edward to be a warrior prince. At age 13, he attended council meetings and military briefings, absorbing knowledge from England's most seasoned generals. King Edward III saw in his son a future king worthy of leading armies into glory. In 1343, Edward was named Prince of Wales, solidifying his role as England's next monarch. This title was more than ceremonial, it placed him at the political and military heart of English affairs. His presence was now felt not just in court, but on the battlefield. Though young, Edward quickly became a symbol of English strength and resolve. Chroniclers began calling him the flower of chivalry. He was the embodiment of knightly valor, courageous, skilled, and fiercely loyal to the crown and kingdom. The seeds of legend had been sown. The boy born into power had begun his transformation into the Black Prince. In the chapters that follow, his sword will speak louder than any throne, and his actions will echo through the pages of history. At just 16, the Black Prince stepped onto the battlefield not as a boy, but as a commander. The year was 1346. The 100 Years' War raged across France, and England's fate depended on a young prince facing overwhelming French might at Crecy. The English army, led by King Edward III, landed in Normandy and began a brutal chevauchée, raiding French lands. As the French forces gave chase, Edward positioned his troops near the village of Crecy. The young prince was given command of the English right flank. Despite his youth, Edward showed remarkable discipline under pressure. On August 26, 1346, as French knights thundered toward the English lines, he held firm. Armed with a longbow advantage and muddy terrain, the English repelled wave after wave of French cavalry. The Black Prince fought fiercely in the thick of battle. At one point, he was knocked down and nearly overwhelmed. A messenger asked his father for reinforcements, but King Edward famously refused, saying his son must earn his spurs that day. Earn them he did. The French were crushed, their pride shattered by a teenager's leadership. The English longbow proved deadly, and Edward's tactics changed medieval warfare forever. His calm under fire earned him praise across Christendom and fear among his enemies. The French King Philip VI fled the battlefield in disgrace. Thousands of French knights and soldiers lay dead, including the blind King John of Bohemia, who had charged heroically into death. The Black Prince's name now echoed across Europe as a rising legend. The Battle of Crecy became a milestone in the Black Prince's life. No longer just a royal heir, he was now a proven warrior. His leadership, bravery, and tactical brilliance had been sealed in blood and triumph on the fields of northern France. 10 years after Crecy, the Black Prince faced an even greater test, Poitiers, 1356. With only 6,000 men, he faced a French army nearly 3 times larger. Against the odds, Edward's leadership, strategy, and fearlessness would shock the world and capture a king. The French army, led by King John II, pursued Edward's forces near Poitiers. Hoping to retreat, the prince tried diplomacy, but the French demanded unconditional surrender. With negotiations failed, Edward prepared his men for one of history's most daring last stands. Edward positioned his forces on high ground, using hedgerows and archers to fortify his flanks. He ordered a feigned retreat, luring the French into broken formation. As the French advanced, they were hammered by English arrows and staggered under organized counterattacks. The battle raged with brutal intensity. Edward's men fought like lions, using the terrain to their advantage. French knights charged repeatedly but were cut down in narrow gaps. The Black Prince moved among his troops, sword drawn, inspiring them to fight with unyielding courage. In a final bold maneuver, Edward led a surprise flanking attack. The French lines collapsed. Amid the chaos, King John II of France was surrounded and captured, along with his son and high-ranking nobles, an outcome unheard of in medieval warfare. Edward treated King John with honor and respect, offering him fine quarters and refusing to humiliate him. This gesture stunned Europe and elevated Edward's reputation as a chivalrous yet ruthless warrior. The capture sent shockwaves through France, crippling royal morale and finances. The victory at Poitiers cemented Edward's legacy. He wasn't merely a prince, he was a master of war. To capture a king on the battlefield was a rare and stunning feat, proving the Black Prince was a legend not just in name, but in deed. In 1370, the Black Prince's legacy was forever stained by the Sack of Limoges. Once hailed as a noble knight, he now unleashed a fury that shocked even his allies. This brutal act would reveal a darker, more vengeful side of the famed warrior prince. Limoges had previously been loyal to Edward but defected to the French. The betrayal enraged him. Still recovering from illness, Edward led an army to retake the city. He believed the defection dishonored his name and demanded swift, merciless justice in response. The siege began with overwhelming force. Edward's army encircled Limoges, pounding its walls with catapults. The Black Prince, ignoring calls for negotiation, vowed no mercy. On September 19, the city fell. What followed was not battle, but slaughter. English troops stormed the streets, killing soldiers and civilians alike. Men, women, and children were cut down without discrimination. Flames engulfed homes and churches. Limoges, once vibrant, became a city of ashes. Chroniclers claimed 3,000 civilians were massacred. The Black Prince personally oversaw the destruction. His rage was relentless. Some say his deteriorating health and the betrayal triggered his cruelty. Others argue he sought to send a brutal message to any who dared switch allegiance to France. The massacre horrified Europe. Even some English nobles condemned the action. It starkly contrasted with Edward's earlier chivalric image. The prince who once spared kings now ordered the deaths of innocents. Limoges became a haunting scar on his legacy. The Sack of Limoges exposed the contradictions within the Black Prince, honor and savagery, glory and bloodshed. It marked a turning point, as admiration began to mix with fear. Edward's legend endured, but after Limoges, it was forever shadowed by brutality. After years of warfare and glory, the Black Prince's body began to betray him. By the early 1370s, Edward suffered from a mysterious and debilitating illness. Once a fearsome knight on the battlefield, he now struggled with pain, fatigue, and physical decay. Historians suspect he suffered from dysentery or a chronic intestinal disease. Regardless of the cause, his strength faded rapidly. Edward, now often bedridden, could no longer lead campaigns. His absence from war marked the beginning of England's fading dominance in France. Despite illness, he remained politically active. In 1371, he returned to England, hoping to recover and influence royal decisions. But internal politics grew tense. England faced economic troubles, and public support for continued war in France began to dwindle. Edward's role in governance was limited. His younger brother, John of Gaunt, gained influence at court. Parliament began questioning the cost of foreign wars. The once heroic Black Prince now found himself sidelined, his advice ignored, and his status slowly eroding. Personal tragedies deepened his sorrow. In 1371, his eldest son, Edward of Angoulême, died young. This devastated the prince. His remaining son, Richard, would later become king, but Edward feared the boy was too young to inherit a troubled realm. Realizing his end was near, Edward withdrew from public life. He focused on preparing his will and securing succession for Richard. Even in frailty, he showed clarity of mind, ensuring his burial and legacy would reflect both his triumphs and regrets. The decline of the Black Prince was as tragic as his rise was glorious. Disease, political isolation, and personal loss stripped away his battlefield invincibility. Yet, even as his body weakened, his legend remained unshaken in the eyes of his people. On June 8, 1376, the Black Prince died in Westminster at just 45 years old. His passing marked the end of an era. England mourned the loss of its greatest knight, once a fearless warrior, now remembered as a symbol of courage and chivalry. Edward's funeral was grand and solemn. Draped in black velvet, his body was carried to Canterbury Cathedral. Thousands gathered along the procession route. His effigy, adorned in full armor, reminded all of the glory he brought to England during its greatest military triumphs. He was buried near the shrine of St. Thomas Becket, as he had requested. Above his tomb, his helmet, shield, and gauntlets were displayed. The Latin inscription honored him as the flower of English knighthood, a warrior prince worthy of eternal remembrance. Though he never became king, his legacy shaped English royalty. His son Richard II ascended the throne in 1377. The Black Prince's model of honor, leadership, and fearlessness became a guiding light for future generations of knights and kings. His victories at Crécy and Poitiers were studied for centuries. Historians hailed his tactics, while poets immortalized his chivalry. Even those who condemned his actions at Limoges acknowledged his unmatched skill and presence on the medieval battlefield. The name Black Prince likely emerged after his death, referencing his black armor or the fear he instilled in his enemies. Either way, it became a title of awe, evoking both glory and shadow, a reflection of the man behind the legend. Edward of Woodstock remains one of the most iconic figures of the Middle Ages. In death, as in life, he commands respect. A prince who never ruled as king, yet wore the crown of honor, forged in steel, fire, and the hearts of his people. Thanks for watching Buried Truths. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden corners of history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more powerful stories from history's hidden vault. See you in the next video.